Senator Harris just questioned you from the Maricopa County Protocol on Sexual Assault. That's the paper she was holding up. Are you aware that, and you know, I've been really impressed today because you've talked about norepinephrine and cortisol and what we call in the profession, basically the neurobiological effects of trauma. Have you also educated yourself on the best way to get to memory and truth in terms of interviewing victims of trauma?
For me, interviewing victims of trauma?
No, the best way to do it, the best practices for interviewing victims of trauma.
No.
Okay. Would you believe me if I told you that there's no study that says that this setting in 5-minute increments is the best way to do that?
We'll stipulate that.
We can stipulate that. Thank you, counsel.
Agreed.
Did you know that the best way to do it is to have a trained interviewer talk to you one-on-one in a private setting and to let you do the talking, just let you do a narrative? Did you know that?
That makes a lot of sense.
Does make a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then to follow up, obviously to fill in the details and ask for clarification. Does that make sense as well?
Yes.
And the research is done by a lot of people in the child abuse field. Two of the more prominent ones in the sexual assault field are Giesel and Fisher, who've talked about it. And it's called a cognitive interview. This is not a cognitive interview. Did anybody ever advise you from Senator Feinstein's office or from Representative Eshu's office to go get a forensic interview?
No.
Instead, you were advised to get an attorney and take a polygraph. Is that right?
Many people advised me to get an attorney. Once I had an attorney, my attorney and I discussed using the polygraph.
And instead of submitting to an interview in California, we're having a hearing here today in 5-minute increments. Is that right?
I agree that's what was agreed upon by the collegial group here.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Sure that it was he.
The same way that I'm sure that I'm talking to you right now. It's just basic memory functions, and also just the level of norepinephrine and epinephrine in the brain that sort of, as you know, encodes, that neurotransmitter encodes memories into the hippocampus, and so the trauma-related experience then is kind of locked there, whereas other details kind of drift.
Class. Now, what did we learn today? We learned that norepinephrine and epinephrine are released during trauma and then encodes itself on the hippocampus. That's a part of the brain. And that's the reason why you only remember the traumatic event and not anything around the traumatic event. So good that she told us that. It means that she's so smart and she's so good at her profession. That's why she has all these jobs in California, all this money. She has so much extra money to give to Hillary. 2 words I'd like to say to Dr. Ford. Fraulein Fritzl. Fraulein Fritzl, have you ever heard of that case? If you have you read it? Have you thought about the trauma that Fraulein Fritzl endured for 24 years of her life, beginning when she was 18 years old? Oh, you know, there's a saying, no matter how bad you've got it, there's always somebody out there that's got it worse. When we realize that, we gain compassion, and then we become stronger. Grateful also that we didn't endure that But if we have compassion, then we could work forward in our professions. And if your profession is psychology, you would do everything possible to help people heal from trauma. And you would know how to heal from trauma yourself. It's a job of a psychologist to retrieve memories that have been suppressed and to help people work through them. But most of all, bring them to the present. A person who's undergone trauma is constantly living in the past. They're never living in the present. But if you're really good at your job, you're a professor, you do scientific research in psychology at Stanford, you've written 65 peer-reviewed articles, you have 2 homes that are millions and millions of dollars each in the most expensive real estate in the world, you're able to give thousands and thousands of dollars to Hillary and the Democratic Party, then you've come to a point where you know what you need as far as healing goes. If you have anything that has traumatized you, really traumatic, welcome to Wicked Felina. I'm Felina. Hope you enjoy. She's lying flat out. We've seen the footage over and over again. These women who've been given license to be hysterical, to assault people. They're so crazed. They believe everything just because the Democrats say they're behind this woman. They believe that this happened. And they believe they have the right to go up and accost people and scream at them as if they don't care about what happened to them. They might have actual genuine experiences, which I won't take away from. There's something in them. They've been given license to be crazy. We've been given license to riot. We've been given license to beat up white people. We've been given license to beat up Trump supporters. Why? Talk to somebody who's a Trump supporter and ask them why they support Trump. If they say because they hate black people, or they hate women, then there's something wrong with them. A true Trump supporter will probably give you other information that you're not expecting. And you might have a meeting of minds with, oh, I get it. I agree with that too. So much that we know already about the Democrats, that they're liars. They're flat out liars, and they're getting away with it.
Sure that I'm talking to you right now. It's just basic memory functions.
How she's wearing navy blue. There's certain colors that you wear that make you look professional and believable, and it's a suit. But she's got her hair just hanging all over, and it bounces around. She's got this huge neck that's really, looks like her neck saw the sun more than her face did. And her beach people friends, she doesn't talk like somebody with her credentials. Either there's some other Dr. Christine Blasey Ford out there, or they got the wrong person, somebody who is from a nut house who thinks they're Christine Blasey Ford. That's the only way Christine Blasey Ford can regain credibility in my eyes, is that they switched her with somebody. But no, the Democrat Party, because she's a high donor to Hillary, they looked out there and they found someone, or someone agreed to get up there and lie. It's very easy. Well, I don't remember. I don't know what that word means. I don't remember that. But she remembers an awful lot of stuff. If you remember stuff outside of the house, who drove you home, you remember where the house is. You remember it's between these 2 points. And you visit. Now, it would be more scary for you to leave your home in Santa Cruz or Palo Alto, We're talking homes that are millions and millions of dollars. This woman gets big bucks. You go out and visit your home, you will pass by that place. You know exactly where that place is because you will have PTSD. It is not just the traumatic event encoded in your hippocampus. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. Because you remember too much stuff outside of the traumatic event. And that usually happens. Complete blackouts will happen if you're a child and completely helpless, completely petrified, living with your parents, and you have to deal with the fact you're living with a parent or a guardian or a relative that you must respect that is constantly doing this to you. So you go off into space. Basically, you count the dots on the ceiling, or you stare at something. You can just get out of it. And so you don't remember what's happening to you at that moment because you can't. But even when this happens, the percentage is very low amongst all the sexual molestations that happen to children. The percentage is extremely small when they have memories that are pushed back completely, that they can't recall them. And if she has memories like that, it was her duty to retrieve all of them, especially if she knows, she's worried that this man might be on the Supreme Court one day and he'll reverse Roe v. Wade because he's very good and he's very religious. God forbid. So that's the fear that the Democrats put in you. But the end game isn't really keeping Roe v. Wade, because it's a bunch of baloney. As I've said before, it gets kicked back to the state. Most of them will keep abortion legal. And the Democrats know this. So this is a bunch of baloney. Absolute baloney. What the Democrats want is one-party rule. And they want to change the Constitution. They want the Supreme Court to make laws. That was a little tell Elizabeth Warren said. That was a little tell. If there's no precedent, what is he going to do? What kind of law is he going to make up? She should know, as a law professor. It's like, what degree? Where are these people getting their degrees? Where did this woman get her degree? I can see California hiring her, because I have no respect for California. It's crazy town. The whole state is crazy town, and they hate American citizens. They just want the border flooded. You know, the rich people, they want help that they can pay cheaply, and the Democrats want voters.
Until May 2012, during a couples counseling session. The reason this came up in counseling is that my husband and I had completed a very extensive, very long remodel of our home, and I insisted on a second front door, an idea that he and others disagreed with and could not understand. In explaining why I wanted a second front door, I began to describe the assault in detail. I recall saying that the boy who assaulted me could someday be on the U.S. Supreme Court, and spoke a bit about his background at an elitist all-boys school in Bethesda, Maryland. My husband recalls that I named my attacker as Brett Kavanaugh. After that May 2012 therapy session, I did my best to ignore the memories of the assault, because recounting them caused me to relive the experience and caused panic and anxiety. Occasionally, I would discuss the assault in an individual therapy session, but talking about it caused more reliving of the trauma, so I tried not to think about it or discuss it. But over the years, I went through periods where I thought about the attack.
So this is very, very hard for me to say. He did not rape me, and I have not told anybody for years until we remodeled the house. And I wanted a second front door. And I had to tell the psychiatrist with my husband why I wanted a second front door. I mean, come on. Come on. Come on. In past videos, I have told you that there's something wrong with this woman. that she's an accomplished psychologist. She's a professor of psychology at Palo Alto. She is a research scientist at Stanford University. Her job is the study of recovering memories that have been blocked. And here she is, unable to remember anything except for the traumatic event that happened to her. Well, if you can only remember the traumatic event, then you don't remember somebody locking the door, you don't remember laughing, you don't remember people turning up the music, you don't remember escaping. And the fact that she lay there thinking about escaping. She was thinking about escaping, which is a survival mechanism. It means her brain is thinking she's not in petrified mode. If she was in petrified mode, then it would be so traumatic. And as she stated, how do you remember this? Epinephrine and norepinephrine encodes itself. That's how you can remember only the traumatic experience and not anything else. Well, she remembered locking herself in the bathroom. She remembered Brett and Mark walking down the stairs. She remembered getting out of the bathroom. She remembered running down the stairs and getting out the front door. And also later on, she recalls that she remembers her friend Leland, who was at the party, bringing her home. That means that she remembers a lot of other things other than just the traumatic experience. That's what that means. Diane Fine said, so why is it that you can only remember the traumatic event and not any other events outside of it, around it? Why can't you remember, the house where it happened, the address, the year, the day, the night, everybody who was at the party, so on and so forth? It's because norepinephrine and epinephrine encodes itself on the hippocampus in the brain. And you can only remember the traumatic experience, which means you can remember the experience, you can remember the bed, you can remember the color of the pillows, you can remember what the wall looks like. There are details that you're focusing on, but you're so petrified, just like a child when they are sexually molested. They will focus on something specific to get themselves out of the situation where the trauma is there, but they push back the other memories. In fact, they even will push back who was molesting them. But in this case, she remembers a lot. She also remembers the people who were in the room. She remembers who was at the party, except for the name of one person. She remembers her best friend who was at the party, all of which have disputed, including her psychiatrist, has disputed her witness statement. Her witness statement was a bunch of bunk. See, there's so many holes in it. Later on, she says that her friend Leland brought her home. Well, if her girlfriend Leland brought her home, and she said she didn't want to tell her parents why she was at a party with boys and drinking, she would have told her friend Leland. Leland might have suggested going to the police. But the act itself, since there was no nudity, there was no penetration, they weren't waiting for her. Otherwise, if they really wanted to rape her, they would have waited for her till she got out of that bathroom. They would have waited until she left the house, would have jumped her, and they would have made sure they raped her. If anything like that did happen to her, and I would think it would be by someone else other than Brett Kavanaugh. Because we know that there's only one reason why they don't want Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court. They don't want a majority conservative. They can't have it. They let Neil Gorsuch through. They can't let a second one through.
But until July 2018, I had never named Mr. Kavanaugh as my attacker outside of therapy. This changed in early July 2018. I saw press reports stating that Brett Kavanaugh was on the short list of a list of very well-qualified Supreme Court nominees. I thought it was my civic duty to relay the information I had about Mr. Kavanaugh's conduct so that those considering his nomination would know about this assault. On July 6th, I had a sense of urgency to relay the information to the Senate and the President was selected. I did not know how specifically to do this. I called my congressional representative and let her receptionist know that someone on the president's shortlist had attacked me. I also sent a message to the encrypted Washington Post confidential tip line. I did not use my name, but I provided the names of Brett Kavanaugh and Mark Judge. I stated that Mr. Kavanaugh had assaulted me in the 1980s in Maryland.
Because they've petrified all the women in the nation that Roe v. Wade is going to get thrown out, and we're going to have white male Christians ordering women around like the Handmaid's Tale. The whole world is going to turn into the Handmaid's Tale, while the Democrats don't want a majority in the Supreme Court because the Democrats are changing all the laws. The FBI, they want the FBI put back in on the case. The FBI is just like the police. They gather evidence. They bring it to the district attorney. And the district attorney, just like the FBI, will bring it to the attorney general. And they make the decision, even go to court or not. One email is deleted. That's a felony. She goes to jail. That's it. She's deleted government emails. She had 33,000 government emails. All the evidence that's going to prove you guilty isn't there anymore because you gave it to your attorney and your attorney decided to erase all the evidence that proves that you're guilty. We have Director Comey. Not only did Peter Strzok change the meaning to extremely careless to make it sound less criminal, he made a determination. He decided what should be done with her, that no charges should be brought. That's the job of the Attorney General. That's the job of the district attorney. Reach conclusions and make determinations. That's why they want this to go to the FBI. Because they know the FBI is corrupt. We know what they did by creating that dossier, working on it, paying for it. Hillary Clinton paid for it. So they paid for it as well. To take down Trump. It was all fabricated. This is how they want things to work. Elizabeth Warren stated that what if something comes up that there's no precedent for and he has to make up the law? She's a law professor and also a fake Native American. And as a law professor and fake Native American, she should know that the Supreme Court does not make law where there is no precedent. In fact, in every single case, you interpret law. You do not make law.
We're here to accommodate you, not you accommodate us.
I'm used to being collegial.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, this woman, if you really watch her testimony, and it depends on who she's talking to, because then she rocks from side to side, and then she puts her glasses on her forehead to have a very defiant move, and she puts her chin up, and she's all strong and everything. But when she talks about her problem, she turns into Shirley Temple. And she's always reading. She never looks off. A lot of times you'll see me looking up because I'm recalling a situation. If I don't remember at the moment that I'm telling you, I'm recalling it. And she should be looking up because there should be a visual memory of this thing. And she never looks up. She just reads the script. And she talks over. She goes like this, and that makes mucus come up to make her sound really, really, she's so young. It's like she's regressed back to 4 years old. Though this happened when she was 15 years old. At first, I was going to give her the benefit of the doubt, that she's all crying, that maybe something happened to her in her childhood, and she's regressed back to her childhood. But the more I look at it, she's totally faking it, because sometimes she just bounces in the seat like this, and she puts her little chin, and she has this little, and she makes a little pose before she speaks. Correct. Correct. And she talks about beach people. She talked to the beach people. Well, by her neck, if she's 51 years old, her neck shouldn't look that old. She spends a lot of time on the beach herself, and she spends a lot of time drinking. She's aged from heavy drinking, being on the beach all the time, possibly smoking pot too. That's why her neck is really tan. It's got a lot of lines on it. And it's like really full, and it's like slagging down. She looks a little too old for her age, a little too old, because she spends too much time with her beach friends, Now, who refers to your friends, even if they go to the beach, unless these people live at the beach? Are these people who live at the beach? Are they homeless people? Or do they come like at sunrise? They walk out of when the tide rolls in, they walk out of it because they're the beach people, and they're magical, and they come from the sea. And then she has her friends who live in the forest, the little forest dwellers, and the ones who live in the desert. Dianne Feinstein shoved it in our face. First, they're saying on one hand, this woman has 2 masters, and she has written 65 peer-reviewed articles, and she's a professor at Palo Alto, and she's a scientific professor at Stanford, and her job is memory retrieval. She's gone to her psychologist and her psychiatrist, and no matter how long they've worked on her, she just can't get the proper memory back. There's too many holes in her story. This makes no sense to me. Stated before in other videos, this puts a stain on her whole profession. What is the point of going to a psychologist if you can be at the top levels like she is for as many years as she has, and she's still petrified over this event? This event where basically nothing happened. If it did happen, and I don't think Brett Kavanaugh had anything to do with it, his personality doesn't reflect that type of person at all whatsoever. But at worst, whoever did this to her, couple of drunk guys, it sounds like they went down the stairs, they went away, they left it, rather than somebody who really was intending on, she said, oh, I thought they were going to kill me, a raper, at some party, that she was probably drinking more than 1 beer. I'm sure she's lying about that. It looks like she was probably very tiny at her age. Since she's, got that little Shirley Temple thing going on, she could have been 3 feet tall for all we know. So 1 beer would have really affected her. I'm sure she was really drunk. They were really drunk. It was at a different party. Her friend probably wasn't there at all. Her friend categorically denies remembering and refutes the entire testimony. But she believes her because she has to, because she's her friend. That's what friends do. But at the same time, categorically denies the testimony, which means even her friend is saying it didn't happen. Her friend, as we found out later on after her testimony, drove her home. So if her friend drove her home, that means her friend has full memory and is able to drive the car. She's not inebriated, so she would have remembered more details. If Ms. Ford, I don't think she's worthy of doctor. This woman is lying. The whole thing is coached. This has been written by her attorneys. She's reading it. She's acting. And she's not even acting well. Because there are little tells that say if the person is remembering something that really happened, or if they're just reading off a script and acting. I have no sympathy for her at all whatsoever. I'm sorry. As someone who's gone through worse than a couple of drunk guys jumping on me and not take, look, if they wanted to rape her, with the door locked and the music turned up and people laughing. It's very easy to get a bathing suit off. The bathing suit, because she had the bathing suit on when she wasn't raped. No, believe me, it's very easy for a guy. I can tell you 50 ways how to get into a bathing suit if you really want to rape somebody. That's a bunch of bunk. The fact that she's saying that she figured out a way how to slip out of there, get out of a locked room, and get into the bathroom and lock herself in. You see, these are memories after the traumatic event. Basically, the event consists of she may have been a little scared. Some guy jumped on her, roughhoused with her. A bunch of drunk guys laughed, and they left. If they really wanted to rape her, she would have been raped. There's no doubt about it, if that's what their intention was. There's too many holes in this story. And if you watch her and she goes like this, and then she does little poses to look all cutesy, these little cutesy poses. Now, if I were going to court to make a statement about something that happened 36 years earlier, first of all, I would have the dignity to show that an event like that, compared to other events that have happened to me, that would blow your mind, I wouldn't even have to look at the page. I would remember what happened to me. These are the things that happened. I would recall them and I would speak with as much dignity as possible. I wouldn't be crying like a little girl. Crying like a little girl. You know, she's been in California too long. Looks like she owns a house in Palo Alto and Santa Cruz. Those are very wealthy communities. She's a psychologist in California, living in these cities, which means Democrat on top of Democrat on top of Democrat. Certainly she was a Hillary supporter. She scrubbed her social media pages of all the vile hatred she had against Trump. She was ready to go to the Democrat Party with a lie. See, the Democrat Party was looking for somebody with credentials that you could respect. And how could you not believe a woman's testimony? See, I have had things happen to me that are far worse than hers. You see, there's a thing called post-traumatic stress disorder, which should be affecting her. She knows the vicinity it might have happened between this point and this point. Okay. Well, every time you drove, you would know where that house was. That would have been seared onto your memory. And every time you got close to it, you would have an attack, a PTSD attack. Just like the guys who come home from the war. Little things that they say here and there will trigger off a PTSD attack. This is the most interesting part of all. She said that she was afraid of flying. That's why she didn't come Monday, she didn't come the Thursday before, but she was afraid of flying. Okay, as it turns out.
May I ask, Dr. Ford, how did you get to Washington?
In an airplane.
Okay. I asked that because it's been reported by the press that you would not submit to an interview with the committee because of your fear of flying. Is that true?
Well, I was hoping that they would come to me, but then I realized that was an unrealistic request.
It would have been a quicker trip for me.
Yes. So that was certainly what I was hoping, was to avoid having to get on an airplane, but I eventually was able to get up the gumption with the help of some friends and get on the plane.
When you were here in the mid-Atlantic area back in August, end of July, August, how did you get here?
Also by airplane. I come here once a year during the summer to visit my family.
Okay.
I'm sorry, not here. I go to Delaware.
Okay. In fact, you fly fairly frequently for your hobbies, and you've had to fly for your work. Is that true?
Correct, unfortunately.
I also saw on your CV that you list the following interests of surf travel, and you, in parentheses, put Hawaii, Costa Rica, South Pacific Islands, and French Polynesia. Have you been all to those places?
Correct.
By airplane?
Yes.
And your interests also include oceanography, Hawaiian and Tahitian culture. Did you travel by air as a part of those interests?
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Easier for me to travel going that direction when it's a vacation.
So she travels, but she's afraid to get on a plane. And she got on a plane in August to do her 2-question lie detector test, which is everything you say true in your statement? Yes. Is anything in your statement made up? She said no, which is very vague. These are very vague, non-specific questions, and there are only 2 of them. What statement? You can sit there and say to yourself, what statement? You could have said, oh, did you go to the bathroom before you came into the room and sat down? Yes, I did. Okay. If the statement is that vague, your answers are yes or no, you can very easily say to yourself and look very honest about it by saying, yes, my statement about going to the bathroom is true. Yes, no, I did not make anything up about my statement about going to the bathroom. All she has to do is believe what she's saying. Remember George Costanza? He gave the advice to Jerry Seinfeld before he went to have a lie detector test done, because he said he never watched Melrose Place. And he asked George Costanza, the master of lies, how do I get away with it? And George Costanza said, it's not a lie if you believe it. Well, what she believes is we know she lost her mind because she scrubbed her social media pages. She lost her mind when Hillary lost. She hates Donald Trump and will do anything, just like any Hillary supporter that you've seen screaming at the sky and losing their mind, crying like this was the end of the world. This was the apocalypse. She would go to any lengths. The Democrats have sunk to the bottom of the barrel. Illegal aliens who are brought to court who have committed murder, drunk driving, selling drugs, domestic violence, probably against a Mexican woman who they don't care about. If ICE comes into the building, they let them out the back door. Or when they get to the prison recently, it's either Connecticut or Massachusetts, I heard an illegal alien who strangled a pregnant woman. When that prisoner got to the prison, they were let go. They were let go because you want them released into the community because you need their vote. They're willing to do anything. So of course, I don't care how many degrees she has. They're so desperate to get Trump out of office. This is a simple lie. And she could say, oh, well, that happened at a different party. Well, he kind of looked like him. Basically, what she's saying is he didn't really rape her because the bathing suit got in the way. Oh, those of us who have been through more trauma laugh at that statement. If you are a professor, you're a research psychologist, you work in the science of retrieval of memory and helping people heal, what you do is you bring them to the moment. Be present. Don't go back there. Be present. That way you take emotion out of it. It's all about removing the potency of that traumatic experience. That's the first thing a good psychologist does. You have to do that. Come to the present. Recall it, but come to the present and take the potency out. Gradually let that decrease. This is something she's been carrying with her whole life. It came about because she was renovating the house and she wanted a second front door because of what happened to her. Apparently, she ran down the stairs and went out the front door. What would a second door would have helped? She ran out the front door. Somehow she probably ran down the stairs. She saw her friend Leland and said, hey, let's go. But I think the whole thing's a lie. So apparently the front door worked. She got out of the front door. Later on, she remembered her friend Leland bringing her home. Well, that's a whole hole in the story. Why didn't she tell Leland? Apparently she met up with Leland, if her story is anyway true, and Leland brought her home. There's holes there. I see male vloggers, a very, very popular one. Let's not name him Ben Shapiro. Will not name him at all, who believes her story, but believes she's misremembering it. No, she's lying 100%. He needs to know how to pick up tells on somebody, mannerisms, behavioral, the science of how you act when you're telling the truth, how you act when you're lying, how you act when you're remembering something, little tells. And he doesn't know any of those tells. He knows all about law, but not those little things. And I know she's lying. She's lying flat out. Wasn't Jeff Flake accosted in the elevator by hysterical females that have been given license? The Democrat-run government is allowing these women who wear vagina hats, they're allowing them to scream, they're allowing Hollywood to do videos and talks and plays about the execution of the president. They went so far as even his son, which is just heinous. These people are willing to do anything to destroy him. Lying like this under oath. She's 15, she was drinking at a party. What does she, I'm not perjuring myself. What do I know? And she would kind of probably rock from side. Do I know? Watch it again. She could rock from side to side. How do you know that how do you know it was Brett Kavanaugh? The same way I know I'm talking to you. I mean, that's Shirley Temple. Do you ever watch Shirley Temple? That's Shirley Temple. She's Shirley Temple. No, she's absolutely lying 100%. And it pisses me off. People who have been through real, I begin to tell you, the list, it's a whole list. You ever see Santa Claus looking at that scroll, the two scrolls, lets one go and it falls to the floor and it unrolls and it's got all these names and the list of if they've been naughty or nice or the things they want for Christmas. And it just rolls out the door. If I sat here, I have a list that long of things that have happened to me. And by gum, oh gosh, golly gee, if I was giving testimony about something that happened when I was 15, I would just look at you and I would say, this is what happened. This is exactly what happened. This is what didn't happen. Yeah, I didn't tell the police, but I did tell a friend. I did tell people right after the event. How about that? She has no corroborating evidence at all whatsoever. This woman is not believable. This was a setup. Dianne Feinstein sat on the information. You know this. She sat on it. This should have been acted upon. Also said, oh, she doesn't know what exculpatory evidence is. She doesn't know what exculpatory evidence is. She doesn't know that with all her education. A lot of things that she didn't seem to know. She didn't seem to remember. That's all she kept saying. Well, I don't remember. I don't remember. Well, you've been through a lot of schooling. You're somebody, first I thought, well, maybe she's somebody who can take information and just can't apply the information, can't apply it to her whole life. She's regressed back to her childhood when her first traumatic event happened. And now, you know, she's totally lying about everything. It's not about forgetting. It's not about going back to her first trauma as a child. They're living by rules that are not in the Constitution. Rules that are not the law. You don't arrest somebody and then let them go after they've been charged with domestic violence, murder, rape, drug dealing. Don't let them go just because you want them to vote Democrat. The Supreme Court interprets law. It does not make law. The FBI does not come to conclusions and make recommendations. It seems that the Democrats have a whole new law, and they're just operating by it. They have already set their rules. They're telling us lies, and the Democrat voters, they don't know what the truth is. They don't know what the real law is. They can't tell when somebody is lying and somebody is telling the truth. They're just told, you have to believe a woman who said she's been assaulted. Well, not if there's no evidence. Not if every single witness is refuting your testimony, even your friend. And you have beach friends. Your close friends at the beach, and then my beach friends. What else do? Do they have jobs? Do they sell French fries? Do they sell hot dogs on the beach? Do they come out of the wave, or the morning dew drops them onto the beach in the morning? What are these beach friends? Democrats, you liberals out there, you've really got to come to your senses. They're telling you lies and you're believing it and you're going hysterical. You've been given license to not be rational. You've let go of every instinct of rationality and common sense and decency that the world has to offer. You've abandoned that when you smoke a lot of pot. And this happens. This has been scientifically determined outside of America, because in America, Obama allowed marijuana to go up for a vote for test. He didn't allow any testing. So there's testing that's been done all over the world by people that are not paid by the pharmaceutical, I think it's the pharmaceutical companies of America. These scientists, lab professionals, people with PhDs in science, have determined a lot of things about pot. One of the things is that you lose your sense. This thing that's removed when you have a lobotomy, your sense of self, self-critical analysis. That's what's removed when you have a lobotomy. And that's what you lose when you smoke a lot of pot. And you smoke it at a young age. You see, your brain is still growing until the age of 26. Pot stays in your tissues for 7 days after you've smoked. It's still there. And if your brain is still growing, then you're bathing your brain in a bath of toxic chemicals. And it makes you lose your self-critical awareness. The only thing I can determine is that these girls, we can blame it on your period, PMS, premenstrual syndrome, menstrual syndrome, postmenstrual syndrome, mental pause. There's a lot of birth control pills, the Depo shot, all these hormones, extra hormones that they put into your body to prevent pregnancy. We can blame it on that too, and maybe that's why you're hysterical, and not blame it on the pot. It could possibly be hormones. And in that case, I have a lot of sympathy for you, because I know what hormones do, and they drive you crazy. It's true. But when you're feeling this way, you must remember, the Democrats are making fools out of you by giving you license to go hysterical and to look crazy and to run up and accost somebody. If you feel that they're not hearing you, why don't you ask to have a sit-down conversation with them so they can hear you, and that you're not on film screaming your heads off, acting hysterical. And when you have the conversation, don't get emotional, exchange ideas. Men's brains work differently than women's do. We're emotional and we're very sensitive to details. We love little details. Men go straight to the point. Men, when they go to the store, they'll go in, they have to go get milk, they'll go in and they'll get the milk. Women will go into the store, they'll walk around, oh, look at this. Oh, this comes from Europe. Oh, it's got no sugar in it. Look at, oh, and look, oh, I love this color. And we'll just enjoy looking around the store. Give the point without emotion. You must remember that women went hysterical, people went hysterical when Hillary lost. And it was a win by any means. Do anything to get elected. They would destroy Trump by any means, even to lie. And it doesn't come into your head that they're lying to you. They've lied to you. And they're using you as pawns in their game to break down the system. It's a clear tell. Any person who knows anything about human behavior, what they do, how they move, sometimes they touch a certain part of their face, or they look up and they look off, what they're remembering and what it's auditory. Sometimes you look up, it's visual, you look down, it's auditory. All these different things you can tell by looking at a person. All her tells are she's a little beach bunny that has got her brain fried by the California sun. And she spent all her times with her beach friends. I don't even think she goes to see her forest people because it's too dark and scary in the forest. So I don't think she goes to see her. And of course, the desert, it's too much sand. There's no water and little shells that come up in the morning. Got to get there in the morning before they come, and they take them away and sell them to the tourists. That's the world she's living in. It's not a rational, real world. You looked at everything she's paid out, where it went to, you would find a trail back to Hillary. She's used her finances to help Hillary out. She is a friend of Hillary's. She's a big supporter of Hillary's. She's a crazy, out of control feminist Democrat, and feminist without rationale. It used to be equality, equal rights amendment. We wanted equality, and the minorities want equality, and the gays wanted equality, but now it's we're better than you are. If you're a Trump supporter, if you're a man, if you're a white man, if you're a Christian, we're better than you are. Not equality. And it should be equal. We should all be equal. We're all human beings. But this woman is lying. And I'm telling you this as someone who is a survivor. And I'll say 2 words to you. Look it up. Fraulein Fritzl. 2 words. Fraulein Fritzl. A woman who lived in the basement for 24 years. Where there was no toilet, locked down there when she was 18, and her father brutally raped her every single day, had 7 of his children. 1 of them died, and he left the rotting carcass down there for all the children to live with for 24 years. Urine and excrement on the floor. You know how excrement turns mildewy and moldy, and urine smells really bad. I used to go by an alley where a hobo, remember there used to be hobos, but guys who were alcoholics used to pee in the alley. That's what it smelled like. That's what they had to breathe. That's what they had to sleep on for 24 years and watch their mother being brutally raped every single day. Live with the rotting carcass of their sibling for 24 years starting at the age of 18. Yes, now I've done a video on that, and you can look at the whole video. This woman needs to go see Fraulein Fritzl. Go to Germany, go see Fraulein Fritzl, and really listen to what trauma is like. This woman spends her day, every day of her life, she should have spent a great deal of her life listening to cases and studying cases of all sorts of abuse. If this particular jump on her when two guys were drunk and then they walked away, if that was really bothering her that much, she would be able to write one article. She wouldn't be able to listen any further. She would run screaming out of the room because there would be so many triggers. Her profession has so many triggers that if she felt that she was really being traumatized by a near rape and she thought she was going to die, every moment of her life in her profession would be a trigger, and she would be locked up in the funny farm. That's why I know this didn't happen. This didn't happen. That's all I need to say. Go Trump. Stick to your guns. I think maybe you should have picked the woman. They would have found something else, but I think the woman, you wouldn't have brought in the whole, because it's the in thing. It's the du jour. Me Too is the du jour thing. Watch out when it changes and it's no longer Me Too is the in thing. It'll be something else. And the Democrat Party will throw you all under the bus. All right. So anyway, goodbye, everybody. Thank you for joining me. So anyway, see you next time. Bye-bye.
We're here to accommodate you, not you
thank
accommodate
you.
us.
I'm used to being collegial.
Okay, go ahead.